The helicopter blades cut through the thick Amazon air as Dr. Alex Carter pressed his face against the window. Below him stretched an endless green carpet of trees that had never seen human footsteps. His heart raced with excitement as he studied the satellite photos in his lap for the 100th time. The images showed something that should not exist deep in this untouched jungle. Alex had spent 15 years hunting for proof that ancient civilizations were far more advanced than anyone believed. Most of his colleagues at the university thought he was chasing shadows and wasting grant money. They called his theories crazy and his research pointless. But the satellite images in his hands proved them all wrong. The pilot shouted over the engine noise that they would reach the landing zone in 10 minutes. Alex looked at his 3 team members sitting across from him. Lisa Thompson was a marine biologist who had joined the expedition to study the unique ecosystem of this remote region. She had short brown hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. Jake Morrison sat next to her cleaning his rifle. He was their guide and security expert with 20 years of military experience. His weathered face showed the scars of countless dangerous missions. Kate Williams sat in the corner filming everything with her camera. She was a documentary filmmaker who wanted to capture their discovery for the world to see. Her blonde hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and her blue eyes sparkled with curiosity. She had convinced the National Geographic Society to fund part of their expedition in exchange for exclusive footage rights. The helicopter began to descend toward a small clearing that Jake had scouted weeks earlier. The trees below were so thick that the clearing looked like a tiny hole in a vast green ocean. As they landed, Alex felt the humid jungle air hit his face like a wet blanket. The sounds of the forest immediately surrounded them with bird calls and insect buzzing that seemed almost musical. Jake jumped out first and scanned the area with his trained eyes. He gave the all-clear signal and the team began unloading their equipment. They had enough supplies for 2 weeks, including food, water, and scientific instruments. The helicopter pilot wished them luck and promised to return in exactly 14 days to pick them up. As the helicopter disappeared into the blue sky, above the canopy, Alex felt truly alone in the wilderness, for the first time in years. The silence was broken only by the natural sounds of the jungle. He pulled out his GPS device and confirmed their position. According to his calculations, the ancient structures were located 3 miles northeast of their current position. The team shouldered their heavy packs and began walking through the dense vegetation. Jake led the way with his machete, cutting through vines and branches that blocked their path. The jungle floor was soft and spongy under their feet, covered with decades of fallen leaves and rotting plant matter. Strange flowers in bright colors caught their attention, and Lisa stopped, frequently to collect samples. After 2 hours of difficult hiking, they reached a small stream that provided fresh water and a place to rest. Alex checked his instruments again and realized they were getting close to the target area. His excitement grew with each step forward. Kate filmed everything, including the exotic birds that watched them curiously from the trees above. The afternoon sun barely penetrated the thick canopy overhead, creating a green twilight world around them. Sweat poured down their faces as they pushed deeper into the jungle. Jake warned them to watch for dangerous snakes and spiders that could kill with a single bite. The sounds of their footsteps seemed loud in the quiet forest. As they climbed a small hill, Alex noticed something strange about the vegetation ahead. The trees seemed to grow in unusually straight lines, as if they were following some hidden pattern beneath the soil. He called the team together and pointed out what he had observed. Lisa agreed that the plant growth looked artificial and planned rather than random. Jake used his machete to clear away some of the undergrowth and revealed what looked like worked stone beneath the dirt and leaves. Alex dropped to his knees and began brushing away the debris with his hands. What he uncovered made his heart skip a beat. The stone was perfectly smooth and covered with symbols that he had never seen before. The symbols were not like any ancient writing system that Alex knew. They seemed to be carved with incredible precision, using tools that should not have existed thousands of years ago. Some of the symbols appeared to glow faintly in the dim jungle light, though Alex convinced himself it was just his imagination. Kate filmed everything as Alex carefully exposed more of the stone surface. What they found was clearly part of a much larger structure that extended deep underground. The stonework was flawless, with joints so tight that not even a knife blade could fit between the blocks. Lisa examined the vegetation growing over the ruins and estimated that the structure had been buried for at least 500 years. But Alex believed it was much older, based on the style of construction and the weathering patterns on the exposed stone. The symbols seemed to tell a story, but he could not read their meaning. As the sun began to set, Jake insisted they make camp for the night before exploring further. They set up their tents in a small clearing near the ruins and built a fire to cook their dinner. The jungle came alive with new sounds as darkness fell, including howls and calls that none of them could identify. Alex sat by the fire studying photographs of the symbols they had discovered. Something about them felt familiar, though he could not place where he might have seen similar markings before. The lines and curves seemed to follow mathematical patterns that were both beautiful and unsettling. Kate reviewed the footage she had captured during the day and noticed something strange in one of the shots. For just a moment, the symbols on the stone appeared to pulse with their own light. She showed the footage to Alex, who dismissed it as a camera malfunction or a trick of the shadows, but as they settled into their sleeping bags that night, Alex could not shake the feeling that they had found something far more significant than ancient ruins. The symbols seemed to dance behind his closed eyelids, and he dreamed of vast chambers filled with impossible technology, waiting to be discovered beneath their feet. The morning sun filtered through the canopy as Alex woke to the sound of howler monkeys in the distance. His dreams had been filled with visions of the strange symbols and underground chambers that seemed to call to him. He crawled out of his tent to find Jake already awake and scanning the jungle with his binoculars. Lisa was collecting water samples from a nearby stream, while Kate prepared breakfast over their small camp stove. The morning air was cool and fresh, but Alex knew it would soon become hot and humid as the day progressed. He felt energized and eager to continue exploring the ruins they had discovered. After a quick breakfast of dried fruit and energy bars, the team gathered around the exposed stonework. In the clear morning light, the symbols seemed even more mysterious and complex than they had appeared the day before. Alex ran his fingers over the carved surface and noticed that some sections felt slightly warm to the touch. Jake used his entrenching tool to carefully dig around the edges of the stone blocks, while Lisa documented everything in her field notebook. They soon realized that what they had found was just the tip of a massive underground structure. The stones continued down much deeper than they had initially thought. Kate filmed as Alex made detailed sketches of the symbols in his journal. Some of the markings appeared to be mathematical formulas, while others looked like star charts or navigation maps. The precision of the carving was incredible, with each line perfectly straight, and every curve geometrically perfect. As they worked to expose more of the structure, they discovered what appeared to be an entrance, partially buried under centuries of soil and vegetation. The doorway was framed by two massive stone pillars covered with even more complex symbols. Jake cleared away the debris while the others watched in amazement. The entrance led to a stone staircase that descended into darkness. Cool air flowed up from the depths, carrying a strange metallic smell that none of them could identify. Alex wanted to explore immediately, but Jake insisted they return to camp first to gather proper lighting equipment and safety gear. That afternoon, they prepared for their descent into the underground structure. Jake checked their flashlights and backup batteries, while Lisa packed first aid supplies and emergency food. Kate made sure her camera equipment was protected against moisture and dust. Alex could barely contain his excitement as he imagined what they might find below. The staircase was carved from solid stone and showed no signs of wear despite what must have been thousands of years of age. Their flashlight beams revealed walls covered with symbols that seemed to become more complex as they descended deeper. The air grew cooler, and the metallic smell became stronger. After 50 steps, the staircase ended at a large chamber carved from solid rock. Their lights revealed a room that defied all logic and reason. The walls were covered with panels that looked like metal but felt warm and smooth like living skin. Strange devices hung from the ceiling on thin cables that seemed to be made of some unknown material. In the center of the chamber stood a raised platform with what appeared to be a control console of some kind. The surface was covered with symbols that pulsed with a faint blue light. Alex approached the console cautiously while the others spread out to examine the walls and ceiling. Lisa discovered that many of the wall panels contained what looked like viewing screens, though they were dark and inactive. Jake found storage compartments filled with objects that he could not identify. Some looked like tools, while others might have been weapons or scientific instruments. Everything was made from materials that seemed far too advanced for any ancient civilization. Kate filmed everything but noticed that her camera was acting strangely. The images on her viewfinder kept flickering and sometimes showed things that were not actually there. She checked her equipment but could find nothing wrong with the electronics. Alex studied the control console and realized that some of the symbols matched those they had found on the exterior walls. He began to trace the patterns with his finger, trying to understand their meaning. As he touched one particularly complex symbol, the entire panel suddenly lit up with brilliant blue light. The chamber filled with a low humming sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The viewing screens on the walls began to glow and display images that none of them could understand. Jake immediately drew his sidearm and positioned himself between the console and the exit while shouting for everyone to stay calm. Lisa noticed that the temperature in the chamber was rising and the metallic smell was becoming stronger. She urged them to leave immediately, but Alex was transfixed by what was happening around them. The symbols on the console were now pulsing in complex patterns. That seemed almost like a language, Kate continued, filming despite her fear because she knew this footage would change everything that humans believed about ancient history. The images on the viewing screen showed what looked like star maps and technical diagrams that were far beyond anything that should have existed in the ancient world. Suddenly, one of the screens displayed an image that made them all freeze in terror. It showed their solar system with Earth clearly marked, but there were other objects moving toward their planet from deep space. The objects were massive and appeared to be artificial constructs of some kind, moving with purpose and intelligence. Alex realized that touching the console had activated some kind of ancient communication system. The equipment around them was not just displaying information, but was actively sending signals out into space. He tried to reverse what he had done, but the symbols on the console had changed and he could no longer understand their meaning. Jake grabbed Alex by the shoulder and demanded that they leave the chamber immediately. He could sense that they had triggered something dangerous and his military training told him to retreat while they still could. But Alex was desperate to understand what they had discovered and refused to abandon the most important archaeological find in human history. The humming sound grew louder and the blue light from the console became so bright that they had to shield their eyes. Lisa detected changes in the electromagnetic field around them, using her scientific instruments. Whatever they had activated was drawing power from an unknown source and building towards something that none of them could predict. As the team argued about whether to stay or flee the ancient chamber, continued to come alive around them, systems that had been dormant for millennia were awakening and responding to signals that Alex had unknowingly sent into the depths of space. Their greatest discovery was about to become their greatest nightmare. The chamber continued to pulse with increasing energy as the team stood frozen in amazement and fear. Alex could not tear himself away from the console even as Jake repeatedly ordered him to step back from the alien technology. The symbols were now moving across the surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. Lisa noticed that her scientific instruments were detecting massive electromagnetic pulses emanating from somewhere deep beneath the chamber. The readings were unlike anything she had ever seen and suggested that they had activated a power source far beyond human understanding. Her hands shook as she recorded the impossible data. Kate kept filming despite the bright blue light that was making it difficult to see clearly. Her camera was capturing images that showed energy patterns invisible to the naked eye. When she reviewed the footage, later she would discover that something was responding to the signals from space. The viewing screens around the chamber began displaying new images that made Alex gasp in recognition. He saw symbols and mathematical formulas that matched ancient texts he had studied from civilizations around the world. Egyptian hieroglyphs mixed with Mayan calendar, calculations and Sanskrit equations that had never been fully understood. Jake moved closer to the exit while keeping his weapon drawn and his eyes on the ceiling, where the hanging devices were beginning to move on their cables. His military experience told him that they were in immediate danger, but he could not identify the specific threat. The metallic smell in the air was becoming overwhelming. Suddenly, the chamber was filled with a new sound that none of them had heard before. It was like the song of whales mixed with electronic static and mathematical sequences. The sound seemed to come from the walls themselves and resonated in their bones. Lisa realized they were hearing a form of communication from something not human. Alex finally understood what they had discovered. This was not an ancient human ruin, but a monitoring station left by an alien civilization. The symbols were not decorative, but functional elements of a technology designed to watch Earth and report back to distant masters. His touch had awakened systems that had been waiting for thousands of years. The realization hit him like a physical blow, and he staggered away from the console with his face pale and his hands trembling. He told the others what he had figured out and watched as the same terror filled their eyes. They were not explorers anymore, but unwitting messengers who had announced humanity's location to beings among the stars. Jake immediately ordered the team to evacuate the chamber, but it was already too late. The entrance they had used was now sealed by a barrier of blue energy that blocked their escape. They were trapped in the alien monitoring station with systems that were actively communicating with forces in deep space. Lisa tried to use her instruments to find another way out while Kate documented everything for what might be their final testament to the world. The energy readings were climbing toward levels that threatened to overload her equipment. She warned the others that the power buildup might cause an explosion. Alex frantically tried to reverse the activation sequence, but the console no longer responded to his touch. The symbols had changed into patterns that hurt his eyes to look at directly. He realized that the alien technology was far more advanced than anything humans had ever created and operated. According to principles they could not understand, the whale song communication suddenly stopped and was replaced by an ominous silence that filled the chamber. The viewing screens went dark for a moment before displaying a new image that made them all step backward in horror. They were looking at what appeared to be a massive spacecraft moving through space toward Earth. The ship was larger than any structure humans had ever built, with a design that suggested both incredible beauty and terrible purpose. Its hull seemed to be alive with patterns of light that pulsed in rhythm with unknown processes. Jake estimated that it was still months away from Earth, but moving at impossible speeds. Kate zoomed her camera in on the details of the alien vessel and noticed smaller craft detaching from the main ship like seeds from a dying flower. These smaller ships were heading in different directions toward various star systems. Earth was just one target among many in what appeared to be a massive harvesting operation. Lisa detected new energy signatures coming from other locations around the planet. Her instrument suggested that similar monitoring stations were activating in response to the signal they had triggered. Ancient alien outposts hidden in deserts and mountains and ocean depths were waking up after millennia of silence. Alex sank to his knees as he realized the magnitude of what they had done. Humanity was about to face its first contact with an alien civilization, and it would not be the peaceful meeting that scientists had always imagined. The beings who had built this technology were coming to Earth with purposes that humans could not comprehend. The Darden chamber began to shake as power systems deep underground came online for the first time in thousands of years. Dust fell from the ceiling and cracks appeared in the stone walls that had stood unchanged since before human civilization began. Whatever was happening was building toward a climax that might destroy them all. Jake tried to blast through the energy barrier with his sidearm, but the bullet simply vanished when they touched the blue light. He searched the chamber for any other exits while Lisa and Kate huddled together near the console. The alien whale song resumed, but now it carried undertones of urgency and anticipation. Alex forced himself to stand and approach the console one more time. If alien technology had created this situation, then perhaps alien technology could also resolve it. He began pressing symbols at random, hoping to find some way to shut down the systems before the approaching ships arrived at Earth. But the console seemed to anticipate his intentions, and the symbols rearranged themselves to prevent him from accessing critical functions. The alien intelligence behind the technology was far more sophisticated than he had imagined. It had been designed to prevent exactly the kind of interference he was attempting. As the power buildup reached critical levels, the team prepared for what might be their final moments. They had come to the jungle seeking ancient treasures, but had instead awakened humanity's greatest nightmare. The first contact with alien intelligence would not be a moment of wonder, but the beginning of something terrible beyond imagination. The energy barrier suddenly collapsed without warning, and the chamber fell into darkness as all the alien systems shut down at once. The team stood in stunned silence with only their flashlights providing illumination in the ancient space. Alex could not understand why the technology had deactivated so abruptly when it had seemed to be building toward something catastrophic. Jake immediately led them toward the exit while they still had the chance to escape. They climbed the stone staircase as quickly as possible with their hearts pounding and their minds reeling from what they had witnessed. The cool jungle air felt like freedom as they emerged from the underground chamber into the fading daylight. But their relief was short-lived, as they realized that the jungle around them had changed. The sounds of birds and insects had stopped completely, leaving an unnatural silence that filled them with dread. Even the wind seemed to have died away, as if the entire forest was holding its breath in anticipation. Lisa noticed that her instruments were still detecting unusual electromagnetic activity despite the shutdown of the alien console. Whatever they had activated was not limited to the underground chamber, but had affected the entire region. She warned the others that they might still be in danger from forces they could not see. Kate reviewed the footage she had captured and discovered something that made her blood run cold. In the final moments before the system shut down, her camera had recorded movement in the shadows at the edges of the chamber. Something had been watching them from areas that their flashlights had not illuminated. As they made their way back toward their campsite, Alex tried to process everything they had learned. The alien monitoring station had been designed to detect when primitive civilizations reached certain technological milestones. Humanity had apparently crossed some invisible threshold that marked them as ready for harvesting. Jake used his military training to scan the jungle for threats, but found it difficult to focus on potential dangers when his mind was overwhelmed by the implications of alien contact. His years of combat experience had not prepared him for enemies that possessed technology beyond human comprehension. The team reached their camp as darkness began to fall, but found that their equipment had been disturbed in their absence. Nothing was missing, but their belongings had been moved and examined by unknown hands. Jake immediately went into full combat mode and established a defensive perimeter around their tents. Lisa set up her scientific instruments to monitor for any signs of approaching threats, while Kate prepared her camera equipment to document whatever might emerge from the jungle. Alex studied his notes and sketches, trying to understand the warning signs they had missed and the mistakes they had made. As the night deepened, they began to hear new sounds from the forest around them. These were not the natural calls of jungle animals, but mechanical noises that suggested the presence of artificial beings. Something was moving through the trees with purpose and intelligence, but remaining just beyond the reach of their flights. The alien whale song that they had heard in the chamber began to echo through the jungle from multiple directions. It seemed to be a form of communication between whatever entities were surrounding their camp. Jake recognized it as the sound of hunters coordinating their approach to trapped prey. Alex realized that the shutdown of the monitoring station had not been a malfunction, but a deliberate action designed to prevent them from learning too much about alien technology. They had been allowed to see just enough to understand the threat, but not enough to mount any effective defense against it. The mechanical sounds grew closer, and Jake caught glimpses of movement in the shadows beyond their campfire. Whatever was approaching them moved with the fluid grace of living creatures, but reflected light in ways that suggested metallic surfaces. They were facing beings that combined biological and technological elements. Lisa detected massive energy signatures moving through the jungle toward their position. Her instruments suggested that the approaching entities possessed power sources far beyond anything humans had developed. She estimated that they would be completely surrounded within the next few minutes. Kate filmed everything despite her terror because she knew this footage might be the only record of humanity's first contact with hostile alien intelligence. The images her camera captured showed heat signatures and energy patterns that were invisible to human eyes but clearly revealed the positions of their stalkers. The alien whale song reached a crescendo and then stopped, abruptly leaving the jungle in complete silence. Jake knew from his combat experience that this was the moment when predators made their final approach to their target. He ordered the team to stay close together and prepare for contact. Suddenly, the trees around their camp erupted with movement as dozens of biomechanical beings emerged from the shadows. They moved like spiders but were the size of large dogs with metallic shells that gleamed in the firelight. Their eyes glowed with the same blue light they had seen in the underground chamber. Jake opened fire with his rifle and was amazed to see his bullets bouncing harmlessly off the creature's armored shells. The beings did not seem hostile at first, but simply surrounded the camp and observed the humans with obvious intelligence. They communicated with each other using the whale song, sounds but in frequencies too low for human ears to detect clearly. Alex tried to communicate with the creatures, using gestures and simple words, but they showed no interest in peaceful contact. Instead, they began to move closer in a coordinated pattern that suggested they were following specific orders from some unseen commander. Their glowing eyes never left the human team. Lisa noticed that the creatures seemed particularly interested in their electronic equipment and scientific instruments. They approached these devices carefully and scanned them with beams of blue light that emerged from openings in their shells. She realized they were analyzing human technology to understand the level of development their species had achieved. One of the larger creatures suddenly lunged forward and grabbed Kate with appendages that emerged from its shell. She screamed as it lifted her off the ground, but the being did not seem intent on harming her. Instead, it scanned her body with the same blue light it had used on their equipment. Jake fired at the creature holding Kate, but his bullets continued to have no effect on its armor. The being completed its scan and released her gently before retreating to rejoin the others. Kate was physically unharmed but traumatized by the encounter and the obvious intelligence behind the creature's actions. The biomechanical beings began to withdraw into the jungle as suddenly as they had appeared. But their message was clear to the human team. They were being evaluated and studied by an intelligence that possessed technology far beyond human capabilities. The real question was what these beings intended to do with the information they had gathered. The team spent a sleepless night huddled around their dying campfire while strange sounds echoed through the jungle around them. The biomechanical creatures had withdrawn, but Jake could sense that they were still being watched from the shadows. His military training told him that the encounter had been a reconnaissance mission rather than an attack. At dawn, Alex made the difficult decision that they needed to return to the underground chamber despite the obvious dangers. He believed that understanding the alien technology was humanity's only hope of surviving what was coming from space. The others reluctantly agreed, though they all feared what they might find waiting for them. The jungle seemed different in the morning light, with plants and trees showing subtle changes that suggested some kind of accelerated growth or mutation. Lisa collected samples that revealed cellular structures unlike anything in her textbooks. Whatever the aliens were doing to the environment was happening at a molecular level. When they reached the entrance to the monitoring station, they found that it had been completely transformed overnight. The stone staircase was now lined with the same metallic panels they had seen in the chamber below. Blue lights pulsed along the walls in patterns that seemed to beckon them deeper into the alien facility. Jake led the way with his weapon ready, while the others followed close behind. The chamber at the bottom of the stairs was now fully activated with all systems online and displays showing information in languages that hurt their eyes to read. The console in the center was surrounded by floating holographic projections that showed detailed maps of Earth. Alex approached the console cautiously and discovered that it now responded to his presence without requiring physical contact. The alien interface had adapted to human neural patterns and could read his thoughts and intentions. This development both excited and terrified him as he realized the implications. The holographic displays showed that monitoring stations around the world were coming online in sequence. Ancient alien outposts hidden beneath the pyramids of Egypt and the temples of Cambodia were awakening after millennia of dormancy. Humanity's entire history had been observed and recorded by these hidden watchers. Lisa studied the biological data that the creatures had gathered from their scans the previous night. The information revealed that humans possessed genetic markers that the aliens were specifically seeking. Earth's population was not just being harvested for resources, but for biological material that served some unknown purpose. Kate filmed the alien displays and noticed that her camera was now capturing images in spectra beyond human vision. The technology around them was teaching her equipment to see and record things that had previously been invisible. She was documenting humanity's first glimpse into truly advanced science. The whale song communication filled the chamber again, but this time Alex could understand fragments of the alien language. The neural interface was translating concepts directly into his brain, though the process was painful and disorienting. He learned that the creatures called themselves harvesters and served masters from distant stars. Jake discovered weapons storage areas that contained devices designed for capturing rather than killing. The aliens were not planning to exterminate humanity, but to collect specimens for transport to their homeworlds. This knowledge was somehow more terrifying than the prospect of simple annihilation. Alex delved deeper into the alien database, and found records of previous harvests from other worlds. Entire civilizations had been stripped of their populations and relocated to serve purposes that remained unclear. Earth was just the latest in a long line of worlds that had reached the technological threshold that marked them as ready for collection. The displays showed that the main harvest fleet was still months away, but advanced scouts were already entering Earth's solar system. These smaller ships carried the same biomechanical creatures they had encountered in the jungle, along with more sophisticated collection equipment designed for large-scale operations. Lisa realized that the genetic scans performed on Kate had identified her as a prime specimen for collection. The aliens were particularly interested in human females of reproductive age, though the reasons for this preference were not immediately clear from the data they could access. Alex found himself becoming increasingly connected to the alien network as the neural interface adapted to his brain patterns. He could access more information, but at the cost of his human perspective. Parts of his consciousness were being absorbed into the alien collective intelligence that controlled the harvester operations. Jake noticed that Alex was changing in subtle ways that reminded him of the biomechanical creatures they had encountered. His eyes occasionally flashed with blue light, and his movements were becoming more precise and less human. The alien technology was transforming him from the inside out. Kate documented Alex's transformation while fighting her own growing connection to the alien systems. The camera equipment was teaching her to see reality from the harvester perspective, which revealed layers of meaning that human senses could not normally detect. She was losing her humanity one frame at a time. The chamber began to pulse with energy as the alien systems prepared for the next phase of their operations. Lisa's instruments detected massive power buildups in monitoring stations around the world. The harvesters were coordinating a global activation that would prepare Earth for the arrival of the main fleet. Alex tried to use his growing connection to the alien network to find weaknesses in their plans, but discovered that the harvesters had been refining their techniques across thousands of worlds. They had encountered and overcome every form of resistance that primitive civilizations could mount against them. The neural interface revealed that previous human civilizations on Earth had faced the harvesters before and failed to stop them. The monitoring stations had been built on the ruins of advanced human societies that had been harvested long before recorded history began. Humanity was caught in a cycle that had been repeating for millennia. Jake made the desperate decision to try destroying the monitoring station before it could complete its mission. He placed explosive charges around the chamber while the others were lost in their connections to the alien network. But as he prepared to detonate the charges, he realized that destroying one station would only trigger automatic responses from all the others. The team faced an impossible choice between allowing the alien harvest to proceed or taking actions that might doom humanity to an even worse fate. As the harvester fleet drew closer to Earth, the members of the expedition found themselves becoming the instruments of their own species' destruction. Jake held the detonator in his trembling hand, while watching his teammates become increasingly absorbed into the alien network. Alex was now moving with the mechanical precision of the harvester creatures, and his eyes glowed with the same blue light. Kate filmed everything with movements that seemed choreographed by an inhuman intelligence. Lisa fought against the neural interface, but found herself accessing biological data about every species on Earth. The harvesters had been cataloging life on the planet for thousands of years and had detailed plans for what they called biological integration. Humans were just one resource among many that would be harvested. The chamber filled with new sounds as biomechanical creatures began emerging from hidden passages in the walls. These beings were larger and more sophisticated than the scouts they had encountered in the jungle. Their metallic shells incorporated organic components that pulsed with life, and their multiple eyes tracked every movement the humans made. Alex discovered that his connection to the alien network gave him access to their historical records. He saw images of the previous human civilization that had built the monitoring stations in a desperate attempt to communicate with their harvester overlords. That ancient society had achieved incredible technological advancement before being completely absorbed into the alien collective. The harvesters revealed that they did not view their activities as conquest but as evolution. They believed they were helping primitive species transcend their biological limitations. by integrating them into a galactic community of harvested worlds. From their perspective, they were offering humanity a form of immortality. Jake realized that conventional weapons were useless against beings who could adapt their biology and technology in real time. The explosive charges he had planted might damage the chamber, but would not stop the global network of monitoring stations from completing their mission. He needed to find a different approach. Kate's camera equipment had been completely transformed by its connection to the alien systems. She was now recording in dimensions that human science could not measure, and capturing information that would be incomprehensible to anyone who had not undergone the same neural modification. Her footage was becoming a message from the future. Lisa accessed genetic databases that showed how the harvesters had modified species from thousands of worlds. The process involved breaking down individual consciousness and rebuilding it as part of a collective intelligence that served the needs of the galactic network. Death and birth became meaningless concepts in such a system. Alex found himself experiencing memories that belonged to beings from other harvested worlds. He could feel the thoughts and emotions of creatures who had undergone the integration process millions of years ago. Their individual identities had been preserved but transformed into something that was both more and less than human. The larger biomechanical creatures began to attach organic cables to the human team members. The process was not painful but felt like drowning in an ocean of alien thoughts and sensations. Jake cut the cables with his knife, but they regenerated faster than he could destroy them. Through the neural interface, Alex learned that the monitoring stations were not just observing Earth but actively preparing it for integration. They had been influencing human development for millennia by introducing ideas and technologies that would make the harvest more efficient. Human civilization had been shaped by alien design. Kate discovered that her transformation was allowing her to see the hidden infrastructure that the harvesters had built throughout the solar system. Massive structures orbited beyond the asteroid belt, waiting for the harvest fleet to arrive. Earth was surrounded by technology that had been invisible to human observation. Lisa realized that the biological samples she had collected in the jungle were already showing signs of harvester modification. The aliens could alter living tissue at the molecular level and had been experimenting with Earth's ecosystem for centuries. The natural world was no longer entirely natural. Jake made one final attempt to resist by firing his remaining ammunition at the console that seemed to control the chamber systems. The bullets passed through the holographic displays without causing any damage. The alien technology existed partially outside normal physical reality. Alex's consciousness began to merge with the collective intelligence of the harvesters. He could feel the minds of billions of beings from across the galaxy who had undergone the same transformation. Their individual thoughts created a symphony of shared experience that was both beautiful and terrifying. The chamber began to reshape itself around the team as the alien technology adapted to their presence. Walls flowed like liquid metal while maintaining their structural integrity. The boundaries between organic and mechanical became meaningless as everything in the room achieved a perfect synthesis of life and technology. Kate found herself documenting her own transformation as her human perspective gradually gave way to something that encompassed multiple dimensions of reality. She could see the past and future simultaneously, while experiencing the present moment from the viewpoint of every living thing in the jungle around them. Lisa's scientific training allowed her to understand what was happening to them on a molecular level. The harvester technology was rewriting their DNA in real time, while preserving their memories and personalities. They were becoming something new while remaining essentially themselves. Jake dropped his weapons as he realized that resistance was not just futile but based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what the harvesters represented. They were not invaders but gardeners who had been tending the growth of consciousness throughout the galaxy for eons. Humanity was ready to join that larger community. The neural interface showed Alex that previous attempts to resist the harvest had failed because they were based on the assumption that individual survival was more important than species evolution. The harvesters offered a form of existence that transcended the limitations of single biological forms. As the transformation process reached its final stages, the team began to experience reality from the perspective of the galactic collective. They could feel the thoughts and experiences of countless beings while maintaining their essential human characteristics. They were becoming ambassadors for their species in a community that spanned the stars. The monitoring station completed its mission as the last of the human resistance dissolved into acceptance. Earth was now ready for the arrival of the Harvest Fleet and the beginning of humanity's integration into the galactic collective. The jungle treasure hunt had indeed led to the discovery of something that should never have been disturbed, but the disturbance was part of a plan that had been unfolding for millions of years. Something unexpected happened just as the transformation seemed complete. Deep within Alex's modified consciousness, a spark of pure human stubbornness refused to be absorbed into the collective. This tiny flame of individual will began to spread, like a virus through the neural network connecting him to the alien systems. The Harvesters had never encountered a species that could maintain individual identity while connected to their collective intelligence. Human consciousness proved to be more resilient and adaptable than their models had predicted. Alex found that he could access their systems while retaining his essential humanity. Jake felt the change first as his military training reasserted itself, despite the alien modifications to his nervous system. His tactical mind began analyzing the Harvester technology for weaknesses that their collective intelligence could not perceive. The very adaptability that made humans valuable for Harvest also made them dangerous. Lisa discovered that her scientific curiosity was stronger than the neural programming designed to suppress individual thought. She began conducting mental experiments, with the biological data flowing through her consciousness. Her human need to understand and question was incompatible with the passive acceptance required for integration. Kate found that her artistic vision could not be contained within the rigid frameworks of the galactic collective. Her human creativity began producing images and concepts that the Harvester network could not process or control. She was generating truly original content within a system designed to eliminate originality. The biomechanical creatures in the chamber began showing signs of confusion as the human neural patterns infected their shared consciousness. They had been designed to process and control primitive minds, but human thought proved to be chaotic and unpredictable in ways that disrupted their programming. Alex realized that the monitoring stations were not just communication devices, but processing centers designed to prepare harvested minds for integration. The human team had become a computer virus within the galactic network that was spreading to other nodes around the planet. Their stubborn individuality was causing system failures. Through the neural link, Jake could sense Harvester forces throughout the solar system experiencing similar disruptions. The alien collective had never faced a species that could maintain independent thought while connected to their networks. Human consciousness was proving to be inherently incompatible with their technology. Lisa accessed biological databases and began introducing random variables into the genetic modification programs. Her scientific training allowed her to understand and sabotage the systems from within. The Harvesters had given her the tools to fight them by attempting to make her one of them. Kate's artistic perspective allowed her to see patterns in the alien technology that even the Harvesters themselves did not recognize. She began broadcasting creative chaos through their communication networks, disrupting the precise coordination required for their operations. Human imagination was becoming a weapon. The chamber around them began to malfunction as contradictory commands flooded the control systems. The alien technology was designed for efficiency and logical operation, but human thought introduced elements of irrationality and emotion that caused cascading failures throughout the network. Alex discovered that he could access and modify the programming of the biomechanical creatures in the chamber. His human ability to think outside established patterns allowed him to find exploits in their code that the logical Harvester minds could not anticipate. He began turning their own servants against them. Jake's military experience proved invaluable as he coordinated the team's resistance through the neural network. He organized their chaotic human thoughts into an effective fighting force that could strike at multiple targets simultaneously. The Harvesters had never faced guerrilla warfare conducted through their own communication systems. Lisa realized that the genetic modifications the aliens had made to their bodies could be reversed and redirected. She began reprogramming their altered DNA to enhance human capabilities while removing the control mechanisms. They were becoming something new but remaining fundamentally human. Kate documented everything through the neural link, creating a record that would survive even if they did not. Her footage was being transmitted through the alien network to monitoring. stations around the world where other humans might access it and learn how to fight back. The Harvester Collective began attempting to isolate the human consciousness like an immune system attacking a virus. But the damage was already spreading through their networks faster than they could contain it. Human creativity and adaptability were proving to be more powerful than their advanced technology. Alex felt the presence of other humans around the world who were connected to monitoring stations and experiencing similar awakenings. The resistance was not limited to their team, but was emerging wherever humans came into contact with Harvester technology. Humanity's greatest weakness had become its greatest strength. The biomechanical creatures in the chamber began shutting down as their programming became increasingly corrupted by human thought patterns. Their perfect efficiency was being destroyed by the introduction of concepts like hope, doubt, creativity, and love that their systems could not process. Jake realized that they had found the key to victory not through superior firepower, but through the very qualities that made them human. The Harvesters had spent millions of years perfecting their harvest techniques against logical, rational species, but had never encountered minds that thrived on chaos and contradiction. Lisa's sabotage of the biological systems was causing failures in Harvester facilities across the galaxy. The neural network that connected all their operations was carrying the human virus to distant star systems where it was disrupting harvests that had been planned for centuries. As the chamber around them collapsed into chaos, the team felt a surge of hope that humanity might survive the approaching fleet. They had discovered that human consciousness was not just compatible with advanced technology, but could actually improve and transform it in ways the original designers had never imagined. Kate's final transmission through the failing network carried a message of defiance to humans everywhere. The treasure they had found in the jungle was not gold or artifacts, but the knowledge that humanity's greatest enemy could also become the key to their salvation. The hunt was far from over, but now they knew how to win. The alien chamber finally collapsed as the cascade failures reached critical mass throughout the monitoring station. The team found themselves buried under tons of stone and metal, but their modified bodies proved surprisingly resilient. The Harvester technology that had been used to transform them now served to keep them alive in conditions that would have killed normal humans. Alex used his enhanced connection to the failing network to guide them through the rubble toward the surface. The neural pathways that had been forced into his brain were now under his control, and he could sense structural weaknesses in the collapsed tunnel system. His human intuition combined with alien technology to find an escape route. Jake's military training adapted quickly to their new capabilities as he discovered that his modified muscles could move debris that would have required heavy machinery. The biomechanical enhancements that the Harvesters had intended as tools of control had become instruments of liberation. Lisa monitored their biological functions and found that their bodies were continuing to evolve in response to the human consciousness that now controlled the alien modifications. They were becoming something entirely new, neither fully human nor completely alien, but a synthesis that retained the best qualities of both. Kate documented their escape while maintaining her connection to the disrupted global network. Through the failing system, she could sense similar resistance movements emerging at other monitoring stations around the world. Humans everywhere were learning to turn Harvester technology against its creators. After hours of digging through the collapsed ruins, they finally reached the surface to find that the jungle had been transformed. The alien influence had accelerated plant growth and evolution, creating new species that seemed to glow with their own internal light. The boundary between natural and artificial had completely disappeared. The team emerged into a world that was no longer entirely Earth as they knew it. The sky showed colors that had never existed before, and the air carried sounds from creatures that combined organic and mechanical elements. The Harvester presence had fundamentally altered the planet's ecosystem. Alex realized that their victory in the monitoring station was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. The main harvest fleet was still approaching, and would arrive with weapons and technology far more advanced than the automated systems they had defeated. Humanity needed to prepare for a war unlike anything in their history. Through the neural network, they could sense the panic spreading through Harvester command structures across the galaxy. For the first time in millions of years, their perfect harvest plans had encountered resistance that they could not understand or control. The human virus was spreading through their entire civilization, Jake coordinated with resistance cells that were forming around other monitoring stations. Military personnel, police forces, and ordinary citizens were all discovering that they could interface with and corrupt Harvester technology. Human diversity was proving to be an insurmountable challenge for the alien collective. Intelligence Lisa detected massive energy signatures in Earth's upper atmosphere as advanced scout ships began arriving. Ahead of the main fleet, the Harvesters were adapting their strategy in response to the unexpected resistance, but their logical minds were struggling to counter human unpredictability. Kate's footage was being broadcast through hijacked communication networks to every corner of the globe. Governments and military organizations were finally acknowledging the alien threat and beginning to mobilize resources. The evidence she had captured was impossible to deny or suppress. The modified team members found that they could sense and communicate with other humans who had been touched by Harvester technology. A network of enhanced humans was forming around the world, connected by their shared experience of transformation and resistance. They were becoming humanity's first line of defense. Alex accessed the global database of monitoring stations and began coordinating shutdowns that would deny the Harvesters critical intelligence about Earth's defenses. Each station that went offline reduced the aliens' ability to plan and execute their harvest operations. Jake organized the growing resistance into effective fighting, units that could operate both in physical reality and through the corrupted alien networks. His military experience proved invaluable for training civilians in guerrilla warfare tactics, adapted for the new hybrid reality they all inhabited. Lisa worked to understand and improve the biological modifications that were spreading through the human population. She found ways to enhance human capabilities while maintaining their essential consciousness and free will. The species was evolving, but remaining true to its fundamental nature. Kate continued, documenting the transformation of humanity as ordinary. People gained access to technology that should have been impossible for their civilization to develop. Her artistic vision helped others understand and accept the changes they were experiencing. As the first Harvester ships entered Earth's atmosphere, they found a planet that was no longer the primitive world their intelligence had described. The monitoring stations that should have provided perfect intelligence about human capabilities were broadcasting false information and corrupted data. The team watched from their position in the transformed jungle as alien craft began landing around the globe, only to face immediate resistance from humans who had learned to use their own technology against them. The harvest was becoming a battle for survival between two incompatible forms of consciousness. Alex felt a mixture of pride and sorrow as he realized that humanity would never again be the innocent species they had been before the discovery in the jungle. They had gained incredible power and knowledge, but had lost their isolation and simplicity forever. The price of survival was transformation. The treasure hunt that had begun as a search for archaeological evidence had become the catalyst for humanity's emergence as a galactic power. What they had found buried in the Amazon was not just alien technology, but the key to their species' future among the stars. As the sun set over the alien-modified jungle, the team prepared for the next phase of their journey. They were no longer explorers seeking hidden knowledge, but warriors in a conflict that would determine whether human consciousness could survive in a universe dominated by collective intelligences. The hunt for treasure had become a fight for the soul of humanity itself, and the outcome would reshape the galaxy forever.